I will now call this regular in-camera meeting, Monday, February 24th, 2025, to order at 5 p.m. And we're going to just want to change something in our agenda tonight in our order. And we would like to take under unfinished business 9.1 planning services redevelopment and move that to after 6.1 our departmental updates, as we do have representatives from the family here. It'll be good to bring those tighter together as long as nobody has any issues with that. Can I have a mover on the agenda with the changes? Thank you, Councillor Fowler. Second, Councillor Drapla. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And then adoption of the minutes, that the minutes of the February 3rd, 2025 City of Armstrong in-camera, oh, hold on, I'm in the wrong one here. Regular council meeting be adopted. Councillor Drapla, second, Councillor Todd. All those in favor? And that will be carried. And moving right along, we are going into delegations. So we are going to start with Isabel Wood. Nope. Oh, I thought you were going to do that. Yeah, that's right, sir. My apologies. Isabel, I got you all excited. 1 second. We're going to start with Harjit Chahal. Come up to the mic, sir, and there's a red button in the mic. And
more just here to answer any questions that you guys had for the developer. Philip can explain all the rationale behind everything.
I think I see the red button on, so I think we're good, right? Awesome. Well, thank you, Council and Mayor, for allowing us this opportunity to speak to here just regarding this DVP. Yeah, I just wanted to provide just a little bit of history and some of the thought behind kind of what we did here, and then to explain our proposal and why we think that it makes sense and kind of meets the intent of and makes the best of the situation, sort of thing. So we had still applied for a variance, and it was like a front yard variance at the time when the old zoning bylaw wasn't in place. And when we designed this home, we specifically designed it in mind that we said, okay, we can have 2 full-size trucks that can fit into the garage, and then basically from the curb to where the garage starts, we can still fit 2 regular passenger vehicles. And so we had, kind of planned that right from the beginning, and with our variance, I had put that into the original variance that we applied for, I think about 2 years ago. And then obviously, that all went through. We got support from you graciously, which we're thankful for. And then, as the zoning bylaws changed, and we had everything in place, I guess the thought came up, hey, well, why don't we, comply with the new zoning bylaws and do 3 units instead of, a large unit with a suite, and kind of split it up into 2 more, into 2 units, the main unit. And the rationale kind of behind that is that we know that Armstrong doesn't need more large houses, but it requires housing. And we know the housing shortage is a very real thing. And so, we didn't change the footprint of the house or anything, but it just worked so well to just basically redesign some non-load-bearing walls on the inside and to essentially provide, 2 living quarters out of the 1. Now, with that in mind, we obviously thought about parking as well, right? And so we know that that we can't that we can fit in the cars practically as it applies, right? And we also know that we're on a little bit of a tricky property. And so, I'm a designer, and I'm also a structural engineer. And so when we designed this building, we looked at the topography, and we just wanted to make the best of it, because the house that was designed on this property before had issues because it was designed poorly. And so we worked with the lay of the land. And so we required to do a 3-story house in order to actually fit a house on this lot properly, right? And so it ended up being a larger single-family home, right? And so, and from there, we're like, well, now we can make this even better. Instead of having a really large home, we can have 2 units and have a lot more available, in the whether it's in the housing pool or whether it's in the rental pool here. And so that was kind of the rationale. And so I felt last time when the council meeting happened that like we weren't allowed to speak. Otherwise, I would have tried to clarify it. But I know it can get a little bit tricky with the technicalities. So essentially what's happening is, the two cars that can be practically parked would also, encroach onto the right of way, right? But it's not like you've got snow removal that's happening in there. That's, and if you look at the houses in the neighborhood, that is pretty common. So I sent the picture to the left of us. The house, they have a vehicle that parks also in the right of way. So this is what it looks like right now. But if you can go to the next picture, please. I think there's the neighbor's property. So as you can see, the neighbor does essentially the exact same thing as we're doing, except that they have one parking stall and we have two parking stalls per unit because we can actually practically park in the garage. And so we know this is a bit of a tricky area, right? We couldn't just push out the house in very far because it just dropped down so steeply. And so we try to be creative, but still keep parking in mind, obviously. And so in my mind, when I think about this, from a zoning bylaw standpoint, Armstrong does allow to have, part of your parking be smaller size vehicles. And so that means like a 5 meter vehicle. And that is essentially what we're able to do. But yes, we understand it is on the right of way, but so is this vehicle. But this vehicle doesn't, that is the neighbor's vehicle, doesn't cause an issue from a snow plowing standpoint or anything like that. And it's more services and all of this sort of stuff that are in there. But this, the right of way practically does form part of the driveway, and so that was kind of the rationale. And we had, when we applied for the initial application, we did request to have so to say, the suite that is the smaller unit that is on the lowest level be in the right of way, and council was supportive of that. And so in our mind, it was seemed to be like a logical conclusion to say, well, we were going to park there anyways. Somebody was going to park their cars in the right of way anyways. It's just that we theoretically don't meet the bylaw requirement that says that parking has to be all on your property. So it's more of a technicality. And other municipalities, because I do work in other municipalities as well. So for example, Vernon, in their older bylaws, so they always had a 4 meter setback. And then the assumption was that you would park over city right away, and that is normal practice. And so Armstrong, I understand, is a different municipality, treats it differently. But what I'm saying is, this is not a unique situation in the sense of, like, we face this in other municipalities all the time, and it's not really an issue often, And so, but I understand every municipality is different. But from a practical approach, in my mind, I think we've met the objective. And so that's what we wanted to just come back, because this exact same picture that was shown to council last time was before construction, and the guy just did a bad parking job actually parking on my client's property. He wasn't even on his property, and he just did a terrible parking job. So we felt that, you guys should be informed so that you can make an informed decision. And even hypothetically, I was just on site right now, between where the pickup truck is, there's actually enough room. One could make a parking spot also driving in to the left of the house. Like, one could get an additional parking spot into there. And so I think, practically speaking, I find that we do meet the intent of the bylaws, and we're exceeding by far what all of the other neighbors have. And so I understand historic is different from what's happening today. But in my mind, if you can park a truck in the garage, and if you can park a RAV4 or a Honda CR-V or a sedan, like, we didn't use small vehicles. If you can park that practically, to me, it sounded like the primary concern was really parking. And so I just felt that it was important to just elaborate on that a bit more, so that there just could be proper understanding of that. And so, yeah, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I hope that was clear. Yeah. Yeah, so that's essentially, this was in the midst of lots of snow. We kind of cleared off a little bit. I mean, you can see kind of where that line goes is actually where the curb is. So you can see the Honda Accord is perfectly parked in there. And so there wouldn't be any obstruction with snow plowing or anything like that. And also, practically speaking, the units, what one has to keep in mind, we've not increased the footprint of the building. We've just kind of split it into 2 units. And so if you have a family, I mean, what was it, 6 bedrooms there before or something like that? And now you have smaller units, you just divide that by half. You know, if you have a larger family in there, the likeliness of more vehicles is also a reality. And that is why that is exactly the reason why we've positioned the house exactly as it is, because we know the importance of parking, and we didn't want to just provide, you know, 2 parking spots for this whole house, if that makes sense, right? And so even though we were meeting the bylaw requirements at the time.
Thank you. I'll just ask if council has any questions of the, no?
Thank you for the presentation and clarifying things and bringing it all together in perspective with pictures. I want to clarify something. I thought I heard you say something about snow removal maybe not happening, or if it's impeded. Can you?
No, so I think some of the concern last time was, well, because it sounded to me, and again, I can't get into somebody's mind, but from the conversation, it sounded like the car is going to stick out onto the road, and thereby we're going to have issues with snow clearing, but the cars aren't sticking onto the road, like, and so it would just be completely normal snow clearing, and that was kind of what some of the concerns that were brought up from council last time was, hey, they can't clear snow there properly, but there's no issue with snow clearing with our proposal, because I obviously wouldn't want to, you know, impede snow clearing. That would just be a bad idea, right? I mean, you got to clear the snow off of the road, like that. That's a requirement.
Okay, I misheard that.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I guess the other question, I didn't see it in there, but it's not really relevant. I'm just curious. Is it a housing pool or rental pool? Like, is it stratified or is it?
So I think the idea, I mean, I can let the client speak to it, but I think the idea would be to have like potentially, you know, to either they'll hold on to it and rent it out, or possibly sell the individual units so that you have first-time home buyers that can get into something affordable in Armstrong. So that was kind of the idea. Instead of 1 large unit, which is going to be a lot more expensive, 2 more affordable housing units, you know, that was kind of the thought. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to speak for the clients, but we had discussed both based on whatever is going to be the best choice.
So it's undecided.
Yeah, I don't know that you guys have made up your mind completely.
Yeah.
You can speak to that. I don't want to speak to it. Yeah. Yeah.
Any further questions? Seeing none, I'll thank you very much for your presentation, and we'll get down to your business in just a few minutes.
Thank you so
at our
much
level,
for
okay? Thank you.
hearing me out, yeah.
And now we will have Isabel Wood come up. I hope everybody had the opportunity to see the letter that I sent out to them earlier today, just to bring you up to speed. And Isabel's here to speak to the letter that she sent us that was really, really good. So thank you, Isabel.
Hi, my name is Isabel, and I'm a grade 11 student at PVSS. This year I took a BC's First Peoples class, and I learned a lot about Indigenous historical events and Indigenous culture. I've made this presentation to try and give more Indigenous representation in Armstrong. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge that Armstrong is situated within the traditional territories of the Secwepemc and Syilx people. These Indigenous nations have a rich cultural history and a deep connection with the land, shaping the region's identity. Acknowledging their traditional stewardship is vital to fostering respect and understanding of our community's growth and development. I would like to add an Indigenous public art display because permanent public art not only honors the original caretakers of the land we are standing on, but also engages community to help raise awareness of the local history and importance of dialogue. For the location of the art display, I've come up with a couple ideas. In front of the City Hall building or Memorial Park would be a good spot. Rather than suggest the type of installation, I'm going to suggest some capable and well-known artists that I believe are worth pursuing. Aaron Leon and Rod Toma and Tunes Toma are amazing local Indigenous artists I think would make a great fit for this project. Thank you for your time. I believe it's really important for the community to explore cultural ties and history, and thank you for doing so.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. You've put a lot of thought into this, and I think myself for sure was very inspired by the letter that you wrote to us, and also very supportive. I think it's really important that we continue with our recognition of our First Nation brothers and sisters that are around, and art displays of some sort would certainly fit somehow into our community. Um, and I'd like to look into that a whole lot more. Have you been working with Warren Smith yet at all, or had the introduction? I know that was in our plan that we had discussed moving forward, but we'll ensure that happens to try to find a place. And did you think, as you're moving forward with this, that we would need to create a budget and fund these things somehow, or do you think that local artists might be willing to donate and share their work to us, or have you had any thoughts on that at all?
I did think about it. I wasn't really sure like what to bring like to this meeting about like budgeting and stuff. So I didn't really add anything to it because I wasn't 100% sure. Um, maybe, but from like what I'm thinking and like from my point of view, they might just want to like donate their time because it's a good cause for reconciliation and having something in Armstrong that's representative of the Indigenous community.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to let council have a couple of words with you here so I don't hog all the limelight.
Isabella, that was very brave of you to come. Is this the first time you've spoken in public?
I've done like a couple like school things, but yeah,
Oh,
that's
good for
pretty
you.
much it.
You did a good job. Are you an artist?
I like to do art sometimes, but it's not really like a thing I've really like explored into.
Okay. So I would say 3 or 4, or last year sometime, we had a conversation about trying to encourage more arts in our arts and culture in Armstrong. And we didn't get very far with that, but I had planned on putting together a meeting with artists, and one artist in particular who kind of rang my chain a little bit here about trying to do something. I'm wondering if we have that meeting, if you might be interested in joining us at that meeting to see how we can move forward to get more art in town. And with your specific concerns about the Indigenous, that would be a good something to include. Would you be willing to do that?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll be able to drop your phone number and address off or something so I can get in touch with you at some time?
Yeah.
Hopefully in the next month or so. We should have it in the delegation. I'm sorry? We should have it from Philip. Oh, okay, that's awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilor Nietzsche.
Thank you, and through your worship to Isabel, thanks. You brought up a really a timely piece for us, and it takes a lot of courage to step up and come forward, so well done. You may not know that council works on a strategic plan, which is like a 4-year plan that we work on, and we recognize reconciliation is one of those elements within our strategic plan. So we are working with staff to start to advance our kind of journey towards reconciliation with our Secwepemc as well as with the Silks people. So it's timely that you bring this forward. I think for myself, the next step that we need to work on as a council is a reconciliation action plan. And it's something that we can certainly work on. But I really like the idea of incorporating Indigenous art as part of that pathway to reconciliation. So I think that you've brought up a really, really good idea moving forward. So as we kind of work on our journey towards reconciliation, I'm really looking forward to incorporating some of the ideas that you've brought forward and recommending that we advance those in the community. So well done.
Councilor Drabla.
Thanks. Thanks, Isabel. Really happy that you came to present to council. Another piece that I see connections to in the community is with the Chamber of Commerce, and they're working on an Indigenous tourism plan right now. And so I'll chat with Patty there and see if there's a fit. And if so, then I'll let you know, and maybe I can pass your information on to her as well to see if there's some art that we could work into that plan in some way. So, great job.
Thank you, Worship.
Councilor Drapla just reminded me that the museum and the art gallery are probably involved and interested in working with you as well. So there's an option there as well.
If I might add as well, I know for a fact that the Chamber's been working on bringing in a bit of Indigenous history on storyboards for the community. So I think as that gets kind of sorted out and brought forward, that'll be a good starting place. And throughout the development of the official community plan, that's not quite adopted yet, but almost, this was definitely something that was important in the community. And we've heard it throughout the community. So it's going to be part of the official community plan as well, I think, supporting that. So it's very timely.
Thank you so much for coming and bringing this forward and sharing the importance of Indigenous art with us. I think that there's a variety of canvases around town that we could totally brainstorm and get something going. But yeah, I imagine staff might bring something forward sometime in the future. Is that something is that like a next step to this?
Actually, not send you away empty-handed. I'm going to give you our contact here who deals with a lot of our First Nations and Reconciliation Act, and you'll have, that's Warren Smith, and you'll be able to make direct contact with Warren, and so we're not shuffling you off. You actually have somebody you come and talk to about your thoughts and ideas, and he'll provide us with great feedback on where your project may lead us to. So once again, thank you very, very much for presenting today. You did a really good job. All right. We're going to start with departmental updates, please. Starting with, well, I guess Terry. No? I'm so confused right now. We got people going all over the place.
Good afternoon, Your Worship. We like to keep things lively around here, so we just shuffle the jobs around. So the corporate services update, you can see we've got some stats. One of the things, Facebook is kind of status quo, nothing unusual there, but one of the things really worth noting is that with the changes that we were talking about at the last update, we've noticed a marked uptake in the number of people who are reading through our city newsletter. So it's not going through just to people's junk mail. We can see we went from around 30% to about 80% opening rate, which is an amazing improvement in just with those changes. So I'm excited about that. Also, Emily's been working really hard to get the website mobile compatible, and she's reached a place where she's really happy with that. So if you get a chance and you've got your phones, try and use the website. It works much better now on your phone. Additionally, before Philip left, she was working on a number of human resource records, liaising with the township, of course, going to the Parks and Rec meetings, and working on joint council and council agendas. And that's it for corporate services.
Councilor Fowler.
Yes, I'm wondering if you could talk to us about how the info works on the website.
But how it's better on the mobile now?
Well, no, I had wanted to talk to staff, but we had to do it a different way. So I went to the website and I sent in a message on, is it called info web or info site or whatever? Just saying that I saw on Facebook that the utility bills had been mailed out. And that was, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago maybe. And that we hadn't received one, but I never got a response.
Okay, I will look into that. Those should go into our general info email box, which is checked by all the front counter staff, and then it gets assigned to people. So I will have a look at what happened, and I will follow up.
Any further questions for Lori? No, seeing none. We will call on Mr. Martins, please.
Okay, just a couple of updates. With the 2025-29 financial plan bylaw finally, or fully, not finally, fully adopted, There is a budget highlights document that was put on the website, and there's a link in the agenda. The goal with that was to make a very short 4-page document that was going to be really easy for residents to understand. So if you haven't seen it, I encourage you to have a look at it. It's got a lot of colors and pie charts and good stuff on there. Also, as an update, the IT project for the fire hall, linking the fire hall's information technology with City Hall, that has started now. So that was approved by Joint Council in the budget. So that is a step forward there where we can be on the same platform. The 2025 approved grants in aid that were approved in the budget, they were issued on February the 6th, so that was done right away. And the final update is our 2024 year-end process is underway, and we are hoping to start the audit with our auditors, KPMG, next week. That's when they'll be here for the week to do the audit. So that is all underway.
Thank you, Terry. At one point, we had a conversation about how of a secondary intake period for those grants, and I don't think we ever really came to any conclusion on there, but there was money left over in that fund this year, I believe.
What was budgeted this year was exactly what was approved.
Okay.
So if council did want to have a second intake, we would have to find a funding source for that.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question. Any other questions for Terry? Seeing none, I'll call up Mr. Smith, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So within community services, first item is discussion is our current snowpack. We've been trying to keep council up to date as where we are with our snowpack. As I think we all know, we have jumped into Frechette this past weekend. Current snowpack levels originally within our report were back from the 8th of February, and I've got new information that came out as of the 22nd of this month. So currently, Hunter's Range is reading at 89% of normal, and then Silver Star is at 82% of normal with no change. So if you look up on the graph where we are here today with the 24-25, it shows that we are below normal even compared to where we were last year. We do have to take into consideration that generally snowpack continues to build into April, so we do have some time remaining. The concerns are obviously that we're still in a drought, and predictions are that we will still remain through these drying trends that we've seen through all of February and that. So we will continue to monitor our creeks, which the crews have started to do for Frechette to look at flooding potential, and then also dealing with turbidity for our drinking water, but ultimately that long-term planning for where we will be this summer and going into it. This is really a day-by-day, week-by-week. It's very difficult, as we know, to predict what's going to take place. They've gotten far better at looking what the trends potentially can be. But at this point, we're proceeding cautiously and continuing to monitor that. And there really isn't any decision points at this time. In regards to DocuPet, so we are moving along through our 6-week process of transition. We're hoping to have a soft launch, meaning just internally, not exposed to the community, in the beginning of March. That'll give staff the time to just work out any bugs or anything that's maybe occurring within that first couple of weeks, and then we're hoping to go live within the 2nd to 3rd week of March for that program. But so far, we've been very happy with the results, and there's been actually a number of opportunities that have popped up that are going to give us some really good resources and tools to work with our community members to have a successful dog licensing program in the community. Fire Smart. So Sherry McDowell, our coordinator, has started. She's not here with us this evening. We're going to save that for the next council meeting. That'll give her a little bit of time, as she just started last week. So I wanted her to be prepped and prepared to provide council with a clear overview of where we're going to be going. A little update that isn't in the presentation, and that is the movie and showing of Incandescence. which is a locally produced and directed overview of wildfire, in particular the impact of the White Rock Lake fire and its impacts on the Okanagan Indian Band. So we are going to have a couple of showings. We will be having an official showing for first responders, elected officials, that will be taking place on the 14th of March at 1 p.m. at Centennial Theatre. And then we'll have a public showing in the evening at 7 p.m. So we are limited to 140 seats. So if you are interested in going, please do let us know. We'll be sending out some communications in the coming days to promote those two opportunities. But if you go in and Google incandescents, you'll get the trailer that pops up. And it's very eye-opening, I will say, as to the impacts of fire, both good and bad, and how we can really utilize it and how we can grow from that utilization. And then obviously the impacts of when we don't allow it to do what it needs to do. So looking forward to those two showings. Last but not least is our Armstrong Emergency Social Services Program that's overseen by the Canadian Red Cross and the Regional District. We're going to be going through a little bit of a recruiting campaign, so you'll be seeing some social media posts and within the general media as well. We are looking for volunteers to support that program and to grow opportunities for volunteer ESS support within our community and the surrounding region.
Councillor Feller.
Thank you, Warren. So as you know, DocuPet has been at the regional district for 3 maybe years now, and I think it's gone very well. We did just receive a letter with some concerns about billing. The person that wrote the letter had received a notice saying he was in arrears, and that when he searched down farther, it was a $15 penalty and all that kind of stuff. But he looked everywhere and he had not received a bill or a reminder. So I'm just wondering if maybe that's something we could take a look at. And also they're a Canadian group that are actually from the States. It's one of those things. And they do a lot of advertising in there to get in touch with them and have dog tags and whatnot, a certain amount sent up from there. So I don't know if that's something we could kind of try and nip in the bud too, but maybe what I could do, since we're talking to you, is can I just forward that letter to you and then leave it in your hands? And if there's something in there that we can learn from, and if not, just delete it.
Yes, absolutely. I'd appreciate that. It's good to get feedback. We have been in discussion with the regional district and other communities that do use this as their licensing resource. DocuPet does provide, there is phone outs, there is mail outs, and there is emails that are received over a 45-day period. So we're quite confident in the mechanisms that the individuals use. Not to say that errors don't occur. We've had some challenges around GIS and mapping and new developments, and that Memorial Park won't ever have a dog license, things such as that. So there are hurdles that have come up that we are working through. So, we are aware that that could happen. There is opportunities, as we know, that this is a company and they are in the business of selling licenses, but they also do have other features that participants can either opt into or opt out of. They do have the ability to decline receiving that information. So we've made sure that that is available to the public, that if they don't wish to receive further solicitation as to other products, they can opt out of it.
Any further questions? Seeing none. Okay, surprise me. Who's doing the public work update?
I believe that is going to be me that will make it, and we'll defer any questions back to Terry. Within Public Works, you may have noticed that we have got our 2 replacement EV vehicles. We have 2 new Ford F-150s hybrids. They're both with 6.5-foot beds, and one was obtained from Jacobson Ford, and the other one came from Watkins Ford. So those have been logoed and they've been set up, so the crews are actively using those. And we're in hopes that we'll continue to have success in using those and have a significant impact on our environment and reduce the amount of gas we're using in this community. Staff training, so we have put through a couple of staff through first aid training, and there's a couple more still to go. That's to meet the new updated requirements by WorkSafe BC. So there was a few hoops that we had to jump through due to the remote location, for example, of where our intake is and the lakes and Thomas Hayes. So there was an increased level of certification required, as well as also a transportation endorsement that's required due to the remote location, particularly with the lakes. So we are up to speed on that now. We've seen the continuation of our asset GPS for curb stops and light poles. We've been doing some maintenance flushing for our sanitary lines that have been performed and completed this month. And then just in recognition of the dry spell that we've on and the lack of snow on that, crew have been doing a significant amount of work within the shop and within their yard to be able to clean things up and get rid of a few things that have been sitting stagnant for a while. So making use of their time.
Thank you, Warren. Any questions for Terry? Seeing none, that's great. And moving on to Ms. Cordell.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just quick updates on some of the project work that we're working on and planning. We have entered into a contract with Bond Creative to build on the signage kind of designs that we received through Kerry, do a wayfinding audit, and develop a whole wayfinding program for us, right through to the point of having construction drawings for the signage so that if we get funding, we'll be ready to pick it up and run with it. So that'll be a bit of a process. We've received an extension on our grant to allow us to use the grant funding to carry that work forward. And we're hoping to have that wrapped up by the end of summer. The engineering design for Kerry is reaching its final stages. We've just approved the design in principle. We're working on a few details with CN to try and see if we can put the edge of the light standards in the right of way, a couple things just to make the sidewalk a bit wider. And once those are, actually even before those are all sorted, we're moving into getting a cost estimate. So that's the next phase that the team is working on. The OCP has been ticking away in the background. It's out at referrals. They close next week, so I'm hoping to get a bunch of responses. I've only received one so far, but I've had some back and forth correspondence with the Agricultural Land Commission, so they're actively reviewing our official committee plan. And we've also just provided a link to the building permit monthly report just for your information, so you have it.
Councillor Fowler.
This isn't something that's on the report, but I'm just bringing up the Sons of Scotland and Derek with the donation that they made. I don't know, was it 3 years ago or something? And they're still wondering about the bench, the plaque, the bench and the plaque.
Through your worship to Councillor Fowler, my understanding is Brad's got that figured out, but I will have him provide an update at the next meeting.
Anything further? Thank you, Ms. Cordell. So we did change up our agenda a
Your
little
worship,
bit.
sorry, we need to
No, I don't think I don't think in the past, are you looking for a motion to accept the updates? I don't know that we've ever done that, but I'll take a mover to, thank you, Councillor Todd, seconder, Councillor Dropper. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Councillor Nietzsche, sorry, we've just moved up section 9.1 to this location as we have representatives of the builders here. Okay. So. Under unfinished business, planning services, development variance permit application 4115 Highland Park Crescent.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm not sure what information council would like me to go over with you today. Council did defer this application to give the applicant time to provide some alternatives for parking. As you've seen, they have provided something that indicates that 2 cars can fit. I still have concerns that once it's approved, we have no way of enforcing that it's only cars that park there. If a large truck parked there, it would still be in the road. So I guess that is our concern, is if council does approve this, we don't have any ability to enforce what kind of vehicle is parked there. You know, if it's not approved, it's in our right of way, so we're able to, you know, have some effect. So that's really the concern that we have, I think, with this. But I think you've heard from the applicant, they've addressed some of your questions. I can bring up the resolution that I had before, but I guess I'm looking to you for direction of what you need from me today.
I'm just curious, we did previous development variation, and we provided them a parking spot on city right-of-way, sort of on their yard space somewhere that's not impeding traffic or the street, correct?
That is correct. It's the other direction, so that it's parallel with the road rather than like a T to the road. Do you know what I mean? And I can bring up the presentation that will show that, I think.
And can you also quickly explain what we've granted them as far as a building application for the number of units in the home?
Yes, so currently they have a building permit for 2 units. So for the upper 2 floors to be 1 unit, and then the lower floor to be a secondary suite. And they had a number of variances, but one of them was the parking in this location here. The red on this drawing is the property line. So you can see that cars definitely do fit in the driveway, but I think if a larger truck was parked in there, it would still impede the road. So I guess at this point, I think you understand kind of what our concerns are. I still have, my recommendation is still to deny the application.
And so I can just provide a little bit of clarity, make sure I have it right in my mind, that they're wanting to park 2 cars in their garage, 1 if they do the suite or different buildings, 1 for each side, and we're denying them the opportunity to park in their driveway. Is that close?
They would still be allowed to park in their driveway, but for it to count to meet the parking requirements of the bylaw, the parking has to be on their property. So their driveway is only partially on their property. And if they always put vehicles that fit, there would likely be no problems. But we can see that a truck won't fit there. And if this is approved, we won't have an ability to enforce anything because council will have approved those as parking spots, as formal parking spots. Whereas if they informally park, then we can say you're on the right of way, we need you to move those vehicles.
I just want to ask council, do we want to put the motion on the table and then open it for discussion prior to this debate? Yes, Councilor Nietzsche. Is that okay with everybody?
So this was the recommended motion here. Do you want me to read it, or is it okay just?
Does everybody want it to be read, or are we familiar with it? We're happy with it, okay. So it's moved by Councilor Wayner and seconded by Councilor Fowler. And we will now open up the floor for discussion. Councilor Drapala.
Thank you, Your Worship. Is there another bylaw that we have in the city that prevents, or if someone's impeding the roadway, not off of the right-of-way, so that if someone's vehicle or whatever else is off the property and impeding what we need to do in the roadway, that can address this instead of through the parking bylaw?
I would actually look to Mr. Smith to see if he knows the answer to that question. Do we have a separate bylaw that would prohibit impeding the roadway?
There isn't anything that would permit anyone to impede the flow of traffic. I would would caution council is, our planner has indicated that if we provide this variance, what it does is give them that legal leverage to challenge the bylaw, that they would have that variance that would state that they could legally park there, that could supersede and we could be challenged on it, with council making that approval. Even though it would partially impede traffic, you know, we're not saying that you can't park there by not approving this variance, but what we would be doing is we would be removing that leverage that we would have if things were being impeded.
And then just to follow up, what mechanism do we use in the winter time when people are parked on the street in the way of our snow plows?
So our bylaw roughly reads that you cannot impede snow winter maintenance work from being completed, that all vehicles are to be removed from the roadway. We do take a mechanism of that bylaw officers will go out to our problematic areas and will ask vehicles to be removed. Generally for repeat offenders, they do eventually are issued violation tickets. And in some cases, we may end up on having vehicles towed if they're there for a longer period of time.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, so my understanding, if we don't accept this, they can't build the third dwelling, it stays 2 dwellings, correct? With the same amount of people perhaps living in it if there was 3 dwellings. Maybe, same amount of bedrooms. And if we don't allow it, they have 2 dwellings, but they can still park there.
That's correct, but if they are impeding the roadway, they won't have council permission basically to park there.
Right.
So we'll have a tool to have those vehicles moved.
And if they have the 3 dwellings, we don't have a tool to say they can't park there except go up and tell them to move it if it's snow time.
Yeah,
And rely on good neighbor policies, basically.
we could ask nicely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm sure, well, that's, just from my opinion, I'm fine with this. I just want everybody to know I have no problem with this at all. I think that we should just allow them to build 3 dwellings and work under the assumption that we're all gonna get along and it'll all be okay. It's a dead-end street, and I think we'll be fine.
Yes, thanks. I'm sorry you guys have such a unique property to work on and all of these hoops you have to go through. I've had a little bit of trouble with the parking right from the get-go. I think that what it comes down to for me is that technically you can get 4 vehicles on there, you know, depending on the size, but we're only 2 people in our house and we have 2 vehicles and usually something else parked out in the driveway. There's never 2 vehicles in the carport with 2 sitting in front, because you always got to move something to be able to have access for the ones in the carport. So to me, that's kind of a moot point in that's fine if it's going to snow or everybody's home and nobody's going out at 6 in the morning. But it's not likely that the residents will always have the vehicles tucked away like that. And if you have one person over for company, or if you have an extra, somebody else sharing the space down there, chances are pretty likely there's going to be more than 4 vehicles to start with. So I've been stuck on this since the first time we got it, and blame it on my age. I've had a little bit of trouble moving off of that. So I think I've unfortunately, I'm going to go with the staff recommendation and see what happens. Chances are you'll get it anyway, and I'll just have to suck it up.
Councilor Wayner.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. It's not very often that staff come to us and not recommend, flexibility of the parking list unless there's significantly good reasons for it. And I'm hearing the challenge of, being able to enforce the bylaw and challenges moving forward. And I'm taking those quite seriously. Councillor Fowler's comments as well. And just unfortunately, just because I realize that the extent that the developer's gone through to add the extra parking in to make things flexible. But unfortunately for me, given the challenges that we're looking at, looking forward, given how congested things are already, hearing that there's already been issues with bylaw there, I won't be in favor. I'll be voting in favor of the motion and denying that.
Anybody else want to comment? Councillor Nietzsche?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, and through the chair. I wanted to hear sort of council's opinion on this tonight. I want to hear from staff and as well from the property owner. First of all, I want to commend the property owner on their approach to this. I appreciated the cordial and the collaborative approach to providing us with information. It wasn't combative. It wasn't it wasn't in our face. It was just pleading their case, and I really appreciated the approach. Unfortunately for them, though, I will be voting in favor of the resolution as it's written. I've had history with this lot, unfortunately, has been around for as long as I have. We can't necessarily always accommodate density on every single lot within the city. And in this case, this is an odd lot where homes are kind of having to be built rather close to the road and can't provide, an opportunity for, triplex density on there. And for me, that's the rationale for me is out. Once again, I think I stated this during the last debate, was that you can't always pound a square peg into a round hole. And unfortunately, on this particular lot, we're sort of saddled with that challenge here. I agree that we will see some parking challenges there if we do approve it. And I do take staff's opinion to heart when they talk about if council does approve this from a bylaw enforcement perspective, it would be challenging for us to enforce, if we do have encroachment out into the right of way that impedes snow removal or other services that we have to provide on that roadway. So for that reason, as much as I appreciate the developer's plan here and the intent, which is to provide additional density and more homes within the community, I think that two-family dwelling is sufficient for that size lot, and so I will be voting in favor.
It's funny, I walked in, I had no predetermined thoughts on how I was going to cast my stones into this. But thinking about it and hearing the piece that basically won me over was that if everybody just plays by the rules and everything's fine, then we don't have to worry about it. But if someone moves into there and there becomes a problem, and all of a sudden the city has no way of dealing with it, like no leverage from a staff perspective, like then there's nothing that we can do. So I'll be in favor of the motion.
Thank you. Next, Councilor Drop.
Sure. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that staff is bringing this recommendation forward. I know, I think there's lots of tricky decisions to be made around the council table lots of the time, and staff can only work with the bylaws that we've approved. Again, I appreciate bringing this forward in alignment with the bylaws that we've approved as council. In this particular case, I understand the rationale and the argument from staff. I just see it as so low risk in this particular area of town, and so I will not be voting in favor of this. So I guess we'll see where we end up.
Thank you, Councillor Dropla. I took the opportunity to go and have the house tour today, and they've been very creative in their building home and design plan to get as much space out of such a terrible lot and property with the hill that's there. They've done a really good job, and I think they've taken everything into consideration. And to me, what it comes down to is we're suggesting that you can't park in your driveway. Everybody understands there's a right of way, but everybody parks in their driveway, and many people park on the right of way all the time. I am concerned about the vehicles that park at the end of the street, and sometimes they're three abreast. And my concern was having more street parking in front of this location, but I can't turn a blind eye to what's happening down the street and deny access to the residents for people that are off the street, even if it's impeded by maybe a foot, if that's the case. I think they've done a really good job in thinking this through. They're trying to provide better density and more low-cost housing for people in the community, which we desperately need. And I will not support the motion, although I do appreciate staff's work on this. It's a very unique spot. We're talking about two houses on one short street. That's my position. Any further comments?
Your worship, just before you call the question, I'm going to go back so I can write down who votes how, doing my other job.
We'll just shorten it up that the development variance permit 25001 for the property at, what was it, 4115 Highland Park Crescent to vary zoning bylaw 1921 to reduce parking requirements to allow a third dwelling unit be denied. All those in favor of that motion? And those opposed? And the bylaw is carried. All right. From that point, we are going to be moving on to presentation of reports, corporate service, interim CEO, and corporate officer. There was discussion at the last meeting on this, so that the appointment, at this point in time, we'll like to have a motion that the appointment of Philippa Harding as corporate officer be rescinded, and that the appointment of Philippa Harding as interim chief administrative officer be rescinded. Mover? Thank you, Councillor Nitchie. Seconder, Councillor Wayner. Any questions? All those in favor? And that will be carried. And then interim CEO and interim CO. So I think all we need to do is release from the in-camera meeting last week that Terry Martins be appointed as the interim chief administrative officer and that Lori Cordell be appointed the interim corporate officer until such a time as permanent chief administrative officer is in place. Right, so motion to remove from in-camera. Councillor Todd, thank you. Councillor Velstar, thank you. All those in favor? And that will be carried. All right. Ms. Cordell, did you want to present this one again, or it's a slight variation of something that's already been approved?
Thank you, Your Worship. This is development permit application 2502 DP, 2505 Wood Avenue. Council is familiar with this because we already really reviewed the variances for this. I think the applicant had wanted to make sure the variances were going to be passed before they went to the trouble of getting the building designed, right? So now we're at the place where they are looking for a development permit for their building. This property is subject to the commercial form and character development permit. The guidelines focus on the appearance of the building and include the need for historical elements. I haven't looked at this permit with that lens because I don't think it's appropriate for this business and this property, especially this addition being at the back of the building. The front already has a bit of a historic appearance. It does recommend xeriscaping and non-nuisance trees and that parking should be at the rear. Council has already approved a parking variance, so I think they're good to go there. This is the proposed shop and it backs on the alley with access from the alley. This is what it would look like. This is the existing building. This is the new building. No concerns were brought up through the referral process. I am in support of this. I think it aligns with what council approved. It will add one more bay to a growing business, which I think is great and supports the economic growth of our community. My only request is that we consider asking them to amend their landscape plan. They have added a zero-scape landscape plan, and the bylaw really requires that there be some plant material. I was thinking that we could ask them to add maybe some grasses and a tree, something fairly minor, just to bring that. The prior development permit that they had landscaping. They still have the spaces. They've just removed it all at this point. So my recommendation is that development permit number 2502 DP to allow the construction of one additional service bay in accordance with the plans from Willerton Engineering dated September 9th, 2024 at 2505 Wood Avenue with that legal description be approved subject to the landscape plan being amended to include plant material as required by the zoning bylaw.
Thank you, and a mover. Councillor Belcher, thank you. Councillor Wayner as a seconder. Any question? Straightforward. Call the vote. All those in favor? And that will be carried. Thank you. Mr. Smith.
I think more than a couple. Good evening again, Mayor and Council. Memo that I have for you this evening is on the Community Emergency Preparedness Fund for the Emergency Operations Center. We're given the opportunity annually to apply for funding up to $50,000 through the UBCM Emergency Preparedness Fund. We want to take advantage of this financial opportunity and improve and build capacity for our Emergency Operations Center. We are seeking a variety of equipment, which includes health and safety equipment, additional signage, response monitoring equipment, communication equipment, storage supplies, some additional administrative supplies, and training. So we're looking at an estimated amount of $30,000 that we'll be requesting for all of the goods and services that we're hoping to receive. We are seeking council's approval as part of the application. We are required to get council's permission and approval to go forward. So I do have a a recommendation for council tonight that the application for the UBCM Community Emergency Preparedness Fund, Emergency Operations Center, and Training be supported.
And a mover for the motion, Councillor Drapla. Thank you. Second, Councillor Todd. Any questions for Warren? Yes, Councillor Nietzsche.
Yeah, thank you. Warren, thanks for putting this together for us. Just for my own interest sake, I'm curious as to, you've kind of put some broad things in there in terms of what we're going to be buying with the funding. Can you just give us some specifics? I'm just curious.
Okay. It's a bit of a balancing act. How much detail do we provide? But so we are looking at managing some of the air quality. For example, for when we're in wildfire events, yes, we do have a state-of-the-art building, but who's to say that we may be in this building when an event occurs? And anything that we can do to improve the air quality, we want to take those opportunities. So we're looking at getting some air purifying equipment, for example. There's some dry erase boards that we're looking to get. A drone is another piece of equipment with training. We are looking at wanting to offer the emergency level 1 essentials course. That would be the basis to train some of our staff that haven't taken any training, but also the opportunity to bring resources from our community that may potentially be able to be hired as contract workers to work within our EOC. There's additional purchases in there that are 72-hour kits, some other life-saving equipment that's in there.
Any further questions? No? Call the vote. All those in favor? Carried. One question outside of scope, Mr. Smith, and also to Mr. Martins. Do we need to swear in our appointments as CAOs, corporate officer? I'll let you ponder on that for a few minutes and we can move on, but it did occur to me that we may be required to do such. After meeting? Okay, I didn't know if there's a time parameter legally, et cetera. So we're all comfortable at this time, and we'll do it as soon as possible? Thank you. Okay, carry on. Thank you.
We'll continue on with the agenda. I believe it's the annual bylaw. um, Where? So the annual bylaw enforcement dog control statistics I have for you this evening. So the intent of this memo and information is to provide council and the community with an overview of our bylaw department and dog control services that we provided for 2024. So this past year, in 2024, we received a total of 290 bylaw complaints. This is an increase over 2023, which we only had 129 complaints. It seems like a drastic amount, but is it back to similar levels that we've seen trending over the last sort of 5 years, really? But ultimately, we also are looking at the aspect of we went through a number of these calls, and there was some specific files that we've had open for a while that generated a large amount of complaints and generated a lot amount of work. As noted in the report, a couple of these properties have since sold or under new ownership. One is set for redevelopment, so that is going to take a significant amount of calls for service out of our unsightly calls, for example. You know, there's been an ongoing issue, I would say, that we're seeing, and unfortunately, is that there is a trend that when we do receive a complaint from one resident, they want to know who that individual is that has made the complaint against them. In most cases, they generally already know that it's neighbor A, B, or C. So then what ends up on happening is that they go through a trend of looking for issues within their neighborhood or other issues within the community. Our clerks are quite good at recognizing names and previous file history, and have the ability to decipher that information that we're seeing, that sometimes these calls are in retaliation to a complaint made against them. So we still have to take the complaint. We still have to log the information. We still have to investigate it and determine what is the best course of action. Those things will continue to occur. We have been in discussions, and it's something that they're seeing province-wide, Canada-wide, that we are in a state that people just feel the need to retaliate against their neighbor, even though they may or may not have been in violation of a bylaw. Ultimately, we always try and seek voluntary compliance before any further action when we can. So it's a little bit concerning, and we'll continue to work on that. We'll, work with our clerks and our bylaw officer. We do currently already circumvent those types of complaints that are made at the door when we're addressing issue. Well, this is happening next door too. You need to go deal with them. So we will deal with those as they come, but we want to acknowledge that that does drive some of our complaints, and that it's an unfortunate situation that we'll need to continue to work on. Within dog control, or actually I should skip ahead there. So we had 56 unsightly complaints this year, 18 traffic and parking violations. Zoning, there was 18. Noise, there was 13. And signage, there was 9, which is up. And there's some work that needs to be done there. I will note that within the traffic and parking only being 18, one of those is isolated to the week of the IPE and the fair. Instead of creating an individual file for each individual violation that may have occurred, we lump those into one file. So if council does want the number of violations that were issued, we have provided that information to you in the past, but there was no significant concerns with the fair this year in regards to parking, as we've had maybe in other years. So under dog control, we had a total of 86 complaints. It's up slightly from 64, nothing concerning. What we do see is that 21 of the complaints that we received are isolated to 13 wildlife calls and 8 calls for cats that we don't. We sort of regulate cats under companion animals, but we don't fully license them and regulate them. But there's no concerns within the dog control area. Our top 5 complaints were barking, 26 complaints in total, calls for other services or other animals and species that I just provided information to you on. Dogs at large, 15. Those are classified as it could be something that has either been brought in as an animal control call, but often really doesn't quite fit there, but it does. And then aggressive dogs, we had 6 complaints of aggressive dogs. Not saying that we have 6 aggressive dogs in our community, but that's what it gets classified as. So staff, really in reviewing all of the information, what we try and annually look at is some of the problematic areas that we have. So really our department's recommending that council could consider is making a recommendation to staff for our sign bylaw, particularly when it comes to our A-frames, sidewalk signs, use of sidewalks. We really had some challenges this year, and we want to make sure that we have an even playing field for our nonprofit organizations that use the majority of our spaces to promote their opportunities in our community. But then we also have some businesses in that are seeing that these nonprofits are being able to place 6 signs out, but yet they're only allowed to place 1. So we want to make sure that we have information within our bylaw that is reflective of what we're practicing. In addition to that, we're asking council to look at maybe considering a screening process. And what we mean by screening process is right now, there's no checks and balances for our tickets, other than our bylaw officer may write a warning, may write a violation ticket. Those tickets are handed in to me. I take a look at it, look to see if there's any concerns, any information that may be relevant to the ticket maybe being disputed, or that there could be other circumstances that may require us to do some additional works. All that being said, that's something that I do, but we don't have anything in writing for that checks and balances. And the recommendation out there really from a number of other local governments that are doing exactly what we do is to have that screening process in place. So whether it's our CAO, whether it's myself or another member of staff, that we have that checks and balance in place to ensure that tickets are being written fairly, that they're being written appropriately, and that we're achieving the outcomes that we want to achieve.
Yeah, thank you. Through your worship. Warren, I'm assuming that we're still using the MTI ticketing system. I think anybody who's worked in that world understands how clunky and burdensome that MTI system can be to enforce at times. Sometimes if you get challenged on one of those tickets, it can cost you hundreds if not thousands of dollars to try to claim a $50 ticket. So it's not really, I'm just wondering if we've ever considered moving towards the bylaw adjudication system. I think we had talked about it years ago here, and I wonder if it's worth it having a conversation at least to explore it.
We have looked into it, but the number of tickets that we write in this year or within a given year is very minimal. I think our success rate in ensuring that when a ticket is written, that it is 100%, going to go through should we have to go to court. We have had some disputes over tickets, and we do have mechanisms in place that'll allow those tickets to be looked at in different ways. So we have the ability to avoid those tickets should we choose to avoid them based on the information that the accused may provide to us. but also we're very good at documenting evidence. So I use the fair as an example where people have claimed that they weren't parked illegally, and we come back and we've got photographs of vehicles impeding traffic and vehicles having to dry around. And once that evidence is provided up front to the accused in that, then they're, coming around to decide, yeah, okay, maybe I was in the wrong in that. But, at this time, it is something that we could explore, but I don't know if it would really change anything for us other than having a different system in place.
Thank you, Warren. Any further questions? Yep, Councilor Weiner.
Yeah, just looking at the signage request for reviewing the signage bylaws and looking at the screening process, is that something we'll see in the work plan coming forward, or is that something you need from council?
It's not something that's currently in my work plan. It's been something that's been on the radar. I didn't put it into my work plan this year based on where I was at that time and point, and then coming back and looking, at the number of issues that we had and what those issues were. I felt that it was something that I needed to bring forward to council. Would it be something that I could get done in 2025? Time will tell. How's that for an answer? The basket's very full at this time. Is an absolutely high priority. Is it going to make a huge significant difference? No. Is it something that needs to be done? Yes. So does that answer?
If you don't mind, I just had a thought that I think we're going to be revisiting the strategic plan once we get our new CAO. I don't know, Terry, if Philippa and I had talked about that, that might be a really good time to have conversations about what's priority for work plans and such.
Yeah, I think you answered my question. My next question was about capacity, and if it's not there as far as the priorities go, and I think if it became a higher priority, maybe the strat plan or some other way, I would just expect to see it brought forward again. And certainly in support of those things, it makes sense as far as communication goes, but I definitely appreciate the fact that we have a lot of high priority items on the table right now. So thank you.
Any further questions? Yep, Councilor Michi.
Thank you, Worship. One more for you, Warren. Thanks for your answer though on the appraisal. I think we just don't have enough volume to have to worry necessarily about it. And I like the approach that education is probably the better route to run, and MTI ticketing is the last resort. And if you do have to resort to that, then you normally have all your ducks in a row and ready to prove that case. That's great. The next question I had you just was a comment you made in your presentation regarding repeat complainants and stuff. I'm not sure if we do have a policy regarding vexatious or nuisance complainants. And do you think that is there a need for one moving forward, or are we moving towards that, or is that something that could be helpful?
So we do have a mechanism within our bylaw enforcement policy that allows staff to use their discretion. So the officer has their discretion whether they are going to pursue enforcement on that violation that may be allegedly to have occurred. In the event that we are getting repeat complaints from one individual, those can be deferred to the CAO, and the CAO can have a final decision to how we want to approach that situation.
Councilor Todd.
Thank you. I realize that sign bylaw isn't just about sandwich boards, but perhaps it would make sense to just wait until we finish downtown, see what it's going to look like, those two sides of the street, before we do a final on signage, and maybe see how wide everything's going to be.
My recommendation would be to have that done before. So that way going in, we know what the lay of the land will be and what our expectations are for how we will manage those areas and spaces.
Councilor Velser, did you have a comment? Nope. Thought I saw your fingers up.
Could
Yeah.
I just add to
down.
that? One of the outcomes of Kerry was that we look at a sidewalk use permit process, because we're going to be widening the sidewalks and encouraging the businesses to use it more. So it would be nice to have looked at that comprehensive package before we start getting requests, so that we're ready when it's open.
All right. Thank you, Warren, for that report, and we'll have that as received. I think will work. And Terry Martins, the dog license fee amendments.
Thank you. As council is aware, the city uses a comprehensive fees and charges bylaw to legislate all fees. So the report that's in front of you is in regards to amendments that are required due to the transition to DocuPet. Back in November, when council was originally discussing this, there was some discussion on various fee adjustments. So what's before you there on the second page of my report is a redlined version of one schedule in the bylaw that is applicable for amendments. So essentially, moving away from spayed versus or altered versus unaltered dogs and having an annual license regardless of dog of $25. The lifetime licenses, again, irregardless of altered versus unaltered at $125, with a limited time of a 50% discount for 3 months, the first 3 months of DocuPet. So that is built into the amendment bylaw for $62.50. And also a fee increase for replacement tags from $5 to $7, as well as verbiage in the schedule in relation to credit card point of sale fees levied directly by the online system be payable by the pet owner at the time of transaction. So there would be no budget impact for the city for those fees. So my recommendation is to go ahead with first 3 readings on bylaw 1934, which is an amendment bylaw to fees and charges.
Moved by Councillor Anici, second by Councillor Drapla. Thank you. Any further questions?
Just one, Your Worship, through the chair. Terry, thank you very much. And I want to commend staff on putting together this. I think this was something that we had talked about, trying to streamline the process a little bit better, and also, trying to encourage local residents to participate in dog licensing and making it a little bit easier for them. I think we're doing that. Just in the communications portion of the report, it just talks that we're going to be including this in a communication strategy, but I'm assuming that we'll be doing a rather robust social media campaign, really promoting this to the community and encouraging people to take advantage of this discounted timeline.
Yes, most definitely. All of our regular channels, as well as newsletters. It is a big change for the community, so we want to make sure that all of that information is clearly outlined.
Any further questions? I'll call the vote then. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And next up, 7.6. Mr. Smith.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. So the purpose of this memo is to amend the Dog Care and Control Bylaw 1873, 2021 by giving its first 3 readings to the Dog Care and Control Amendment Bylaw 1935, 2025. So there is a recommendation there before you. So back at the November 25th regular council meeting, there were 2 recommendations that came forward from council at that time. When reviewing our current bylaw, there were some administrative changes that we recognized that needed to be amended. One being that the application for license timelines no longer has a due date of March 15th, that licensing will be annually from the time of purchase. So we need to ensure that our bylaw is reflective of that need of change. In addition, spaying and neutering of dogs, there will now be one structured fee, and that it will not matter whether your dog is spayed or neutered. It will be a level playing field with one single fee. So we're wanting to ensure that our bylaw is reflective of that as well. And then, of course, the licensing period, as previously outlined within the first amendment, is that the licensing period will change from January 1st to 31st to a period of 365 days from the date of purchase. So there is a recommendation, and the recommendation is that the Dog Care and Control amended bylaw number 1935, 2025 be read a first, second, and third time.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Moved by Councillor Weiner, second by Councillor Todd. Any further questions? Call the vote. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Smith. And we're moving on to correspondence. 8.1 from the Okanagan Basin Water Board. Just like to also pass on condolences to the family of Rick Nodal. He was the director for the Okanagan Basin Water Board and Regional District of the Okanagan South Electoral Area C. I didn't know if Councillor Fowler would like to comment on that at all, but I know he did a lot of work in the community, so.
At the water board meeting, they had quite a nice little discussion and memorial. Lots of people had good thoughts to say about him, and it was, and he will be missed. He's had a lot of history with Basin Water Board as well. And one other thing I was going to mention about this, and it's just gone right now. Oh, this week they will be very likely making the announcement for the new boss at the Okanagan Basin Water Board. They had final interviews yesterday, and the decisions will be made, and they'll be announced this week.
Thank you, Councillor Fowler. If there's no questions regarding that piece of correspondence, then we'll talk about the 8.2, the Thompson Okanagan Rodeo Club. Bring in their high school rodeo to Armstrong May 2nd through 4th, and looking for some sponsorship. I don't know if we have any sponsorship opportunities or if that's a normal thing, but I have attended junior rodeos in the past, and there's some really great talent there. So I think whatever support we can provide them, we should. Any comments? All right. The BC Farmers Market. Again, did really, really well last year. I was quite amazed that the local residents redeemed over $17,841 with their tickets at the Armstrong Farmers Market and supported over 38 low-income households. They've asked in their correspondence that we send off a letter to the Minister of Health, the Honorable Josie Osborne, as there is no funding secured for the 2025 program as of yet. And I would like to ask for Council's endorsement to have staff support this request. Councillor, thank you, Councillor Wayner. Second, Councillor Todd. No further discussion? All those in favor? Thank you very much. I'm sure everybody appreciates that. We got a letter of thanks for the cam jammers for last year and the grant money that we provided them for the car shows up and coming. And also from the CN Police, we subscribe to be one of their rail ambassadors, and send along a certificate they asked us to display somewhere. And that was it for correspondence. We've done 9.1 already, so we are into new business matters referred from committee, commission, and in camera. Councillor and liaison reports. We're going to ask Councillor Wayner to speak to his meeting with the Trail Society.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I attended the last meeting of the Trail Society, and I think most of what I put in the report here is going to be in the presentation they give council tomorrow night. I saw a lot of it in there. The outhouse is there, the recreation grant. They were just thankful for a letter of support, and that was the grant to add signage around Thomas Hayes Park. And then they had their year-end presentation where there is a discussion in there about just emergency access. There was a couple of incidents there that they wanted to be able to get vehicles into a certain area, so I asked them to provide a map just so we get some clarity around what it is they're talking about and whose lands we're talking about. And then just an incredible number of volunteer hours, 800 volunteer hours for the first quarter, and just their appreciation for being the charity of choice for Armstrong Cider. And then you can look to see them at the Green Fair on April 19th, the IP grounds. So,
Councillor Wayner, any other board reports come forward that weren't on the agenda? Councillor Drapla.
Just to highlight the ribbon cutting for the new Chamber of Commerce home at Oddfellows Hall. So March 19th from 5:30 to 7:30. They're inviting councils and others to business after business who might not usually be there. So I think they would really appreciate council presence on that day, if you're able to make it. I believe everyone has an email of this, or no? Okay, I'll pass that around. So, March 19th, 5:30 to 7:30 at Oddfellows. Door prizes, beverages, snacks, RSVP to Rhonda at aschamber.com. And they're advertising that that they can network with our members and special guests for the special guests. So hopefully some of us can show up.
Thank you, Councillor Drapla. Councillor Fowler.
I just put that on. You turned it off. So the SIR agenda report came in, but I didn't, well, I thought I'd just bring it now. If anybody wants me to email it to them, I can. Our last meeting was on the 31st. George Bush was re-elected as the vice chair, and Shirley Fowler has been re-elected as the chair. And also, one of the things that SIR is really proud of is the length of employment that they seem to have. The fellow that's in charge, for example, the fellow that's in charge of the brewing facility has been there since day one. So that's pretty significant. The concerns came up that he's been there so long, nobody else know how to run it, so they've got a great succession plan in place as well. But there's, at the meeting the other day, the service awards, there was a 30-year milestone for one of the Penticton field staff, Bruce Garska. So we really do applaud them for sticking with us all that time. There's also concerns with the tariffs. We don't know what they're going to be on. If they're going to be on our moths, that could be a significant change. But we're now at the point where we have been shipping a third of our production across the border to Washington states because they have a lot of organic growers down there as well. And the steps that the tools that they're using now are just not as effective. So these cobbing moths can be out there, and they have had great success, and they will take as many moths as we can possibly sell them, and that's up to $1 million in sales last year. The dieting ingredients are expensive, so don't be thinking that there's $1 million in our back pocket, but it does give us a significant income over and above. And that was the big thing there. So that was that. If you want to see this, I'm happy to send it to you.
Thank you, Councillor Fowler. Councillor Belster.
Just when, not a comment on RDNO, but I can give a Parks and Rec update when we have a moment. So if there's any questions on RDNO.
I just, well, you can see the highlights here. I don't need to go over them, but there was one thing that I wanted to bring forth, and that's all the grants that were awarded at our last meeting. But the North Okanagan Conservation Fund is kind of a unique one, and it came up, oh, I had it here. It started, I think it was about, like maybe only 4 or 5 years ago. And it's all the electoral areas in the function, and the only other ones in the function are Lumbee and Armstrong. So we pay into that function. I think it might be around a couple $100 in that area. And it's interesting that the only ones, the reason I'm bringing this up is the only ones who can apply for funding out of this conservation fund are those who are in the service. So it's electoral areas, Armstrong and Lumbee. And we have another significant, not significant, sorry, I've lost it. There's another award this year to the invasive species who are dealing with the yellow flag iris, and they have been identified in several places down on the wetlands in Armstrong. So us being involved in this is definitely something we get our money back from, because the invasive species come in and they help coordinate and educate. And then along with volunteers such as Kim Fulton, we're on top of it. I think that's, unless there's questions. Oh, okay, yeah, sorry. And then the other thing is we have our, we've been going through all of, I've been to more budget meetings at regional district in the last month than you want to be hearing about, but our final consolidated budgets will be happening on Wednesday. And last year our tax requisition was $348,000, and that had been a 3.6% increase over the year before. But this year, I'm looking forward to the opportunity of coming back and telling you that our requisition may decrease because of the changes in the assessments this year. It looks like we should be okay there. I don't want to say too much and jinx it, but it does. But we're looking pretty good for regional district budget this year, I think. More on that next meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Feller. I did sit in on last week's meeting, and it was interesting to hear, and as we all know, that the increased costs of every project moving forward and the delays are costing just immeasurable amounts of money. We're doubling in the course of a year to get these projects done, and I think we have to make certain that whatever improvements that we're looking at doing, that they need to be critical projects, and we're going to have to keep putting things back on those back burners, because if we don't get them done this year, they're going to cost us twice as much next year. It's just an unfortunate reality.
And point in case is our water reservoir that we've been talking about for so long. You know, when we first started talking about it, was in the neighborhood of 3 million, and look at it now.
Councillor Valster.
All right, yeah, sorry I didn't provide a bit of a written report prior to this, but just going over a couple of things at the last Parks and Rec meeting. Kim Sinclair came as a delegation to speak about some issues that they're having with access to the Asparagus Theatre and just the overall treatment of the Memorandum of Understanding. And so we have, it's going back to staff to see what things we can work on that aren't necessarily things that we can deal with politically. And we should be hearing back from them sometime soon. We did get a report that we asked for last year on the audio-visual for the Sunbelt Arena, which was really cool. We had someone professional come in and provide a couple of different options in different areas for the Sunbelt Arena. And it's not in the budget this year, but we're hopefully going to work it into something in the future. They give us a couple of options, so it's good. The Zamboni door is stuck open, and the part costs more than to replace than it does to replace the whole door. So that is something that they're struggling with right now. So anyways, it's an operational thing. And then just the general manager's report. And then we did receive a letter about accessibility for the pool, and that there's, the accessibility to the pool is a little limited, and that it may need, and that staff is currently working on having, which foundation? Rick Hansen Foundation to look at it to see what improvements or strategies that we can take to make it a little bit better for people. And that's Parks and Rec.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, we'll move to an in-camera session, and that council move in camera at 6:38 p.m. pursuant to the Community Charter, Section 90, subsection 1A, personal information about identifiable individuals who hold or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality or another position appointed by the municipality. Subsection C, labor relations and other employee relations. And subsection J, information that is prohibited or information that, if it were presented in a document, would be prohibited from disclosure under Section 21 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. You have a mover? Councillor Drapolo, seconder. Councillor Todd. All those in favor? Motion is